Hello world, I'm Saint Dev Guy. One of the things I've been doing in my streams, I build my game, is talking about architectural decisions that have to be made early and result in much work if you have to do it over again and you make a different one. And I ran into uh, a problem with Unreal Engine where there's two ways to script. One is using the Unreal blueprints, and the other one is using the Unreal C++. And I originally planned, just like game engines, where I'm implementing the game in multiple game engines, of doing it both ways and seeing which one I liked, which would take a good bit of work on my side and really wouldn't accomplish anything except for just being assured I could make the right decision for me as I program this game. Well, Unreal, luckily, gives you all kinds of different starting points. For example, there is the top-down starting point, which I have chosen because it's most similar of all their starting points to the game I had. And when you look at the top-down, you can make it in as a blueprint, or you can make it as a C++. And either way, they work exactly the same. You click on somewhere, and it moves. So instead of implementing mine twice, I can kind of look at what they did and see which one I feel like are better. So to take an example here, if I go in C++, I get this implementation of move the mouse cursor. And this is some of the stuff they're doing in order to get the game to behave. Now, if I go in the blueprints, I can see the same blueprint that does the same thing. But I really don't need to do this twice. I actually have an example here. And I can see all these little lines, and they have various things. And actually, if you go into some other blueprints at times, it even has other, they put comments in it, very similar to the C++. And so rather than doing it twice, I can just read through both of these and figure out which one I like better. Now, looking at the blueprint, it's very visual. And I think that visual things are happening more and more, are really designed partially for people who not only understand visual stuff, but necessarily our kids these days, the Lego programming language is somewhat visual, and other programming languages that we use for children are visual, as well as if you're going into making, say you're doing 3D art in something like Blender, they have visual things that look somewhat like this to help you make textures and shaders and all that. So this is a common thing to do. Whereas this, if you don't program a lot, you haven't been programming for as many years as I have, this looks very kind of confusing and foreign and overwhelming, I believe. If you've never done C++, there are things in here that are not very semicolon curly brace kind of language stuff, things like the arrows things. And so you might find this ampersand, you might find that this is a little intimidating if you don't already know. C++ is very powerful. It's an older language, but it was never made to be trivial. It was made to accomplish things that at that time were not necessarily accomplished full in the speed and the memory of those computers back when this was built in the 1980s. Will still be object oriented, which was something that people wanted to do to organize their software. So this versus this. Now, as a programmer who not only has done C++, but also programmed for many years, I actually find this more comfortable. I have built up years of intuition to understand visually what is going on in something like this, and I have not built up years of intuition to figure out what's going on here. In fact, when I look at this a little closer, I'm not sure that even if I knew all the tasks I wanted to do here, I would know what order to put them all in. And I'm certainly, when I've done stuff like this, sometimes getting the lines to line up correctly, I spend a lot of time futzing around with moving things to make it look as smooth as possible, will still be in the screen where I can read the text and it's not just blurry. Whereas this, even if it's multiple pages, there's only 100 and some lines of code, and that's, I mean, I'm used to 1,000. To be honest, as a professional programmer, sometimes there's a lot of stuff to do. This to me is more intuitively common. Now, just because it's better for me doesn't mean that it's what I want to choose for my project. I have to think about this. I have to say to myself, when I look at my project overall, and I look at all the things I want to do, and this is a very small subset, of course, but this is where I'm starting. I look at everything I want to do, and I think about, well, maybe I'll do a fundraiser and hire some help. What would I need help for most? Well, things like the visual art. I'm not that experienced at that, so that might be something I get helping. Things like the animations. I'm very inexperienced with the animations. My first animation was done here on stream, and so animation's hard. I could possibly use some help for that. I can play guitar. I'm not a professional guitar player. When I tried to play the guitar and record the guitar for the bear, it was clumsy. I know how to fix that. I know what I can do. I just need to practice more. But an amateur practices until they can play the piece. A professional practices until they can't play it wrong. I don't have the time to be a professional and keep playing this piece over and over again until I can't play it wrong so I can record it. But the programming, and having spent 35 years programming and used to working in C++ and the semicolon kind of languages, the Java, the JavaScript, the TypeScript, the C#, all that kind of stuff, this to me feels very natural. So I'm going to do C++. And I'm not picking that only because I'm doing it better, but also I'm picking that because I don't anticipate needing to find help with the C++. So I think the project can move forward in C++ without really causing trouble. If I felt like I was going to ultimately end up with 5 programmers, and I felt like, and I did some research, and I found that Blueprint programmers are much more common than C++ programmers in Unity, I might switch that the other way, and I might bother to learn blueprinting, which I've done a little bit before, I have to admit. Oh, I don't know where it is. I might be able to learn blueprinting, and I might take the time to really build up that intuition of when I look at a blueprint, that this is how it looks, and this is what it's supposed to do. But I'm going to skip all of that, and I'm not going to implement the coding twice in this game. I'm going to do it once for Unreal. I've already done it in C# for Unity. I've done it in GDScript, which is very Python-like, and I had never done GDScript, but I have done Python in Godot. So the other advantage is I already have 2 scripts written out in other languages, sure, but I mean, every day I use C# and JavaScript and SQL. So working in different languages doesn't bother me. It's just that none of them are blueprints. None of them are visual. So for me, for Saint Dev Guy, we're going C++. At times, I could very well see that the appropriate answer actually is Unity blueprints. Just not for this project, not for me, not today. So there's some of my thought processes of making an architectural decision that I'm going to live with for years. and feel some confidence that I have made the right decision. And maybe I have, and maybe I haven't, but I think it's pretty likely that I have not made the wrong decision, even if it turned out to be equal. If it's either right or it's equal, that's all I need. I just need it not to be wrong. I have to redo everything. And I think I have not made the wrong decision. So maybe that's a good example, and you have to make those decisions yourself to think about not only what you know best, what you would need to learn, but also would there be other people helping you? And if ultimately you can make not the wrong decision, and maybe it's even the right decision, just don't make the wrong one. That's all you need to do. For game engines, I'm not sure which one is wrong yet, and therefore I'm still working. But that's a different story. For Unreal, C++ is the way for me. That's it. Stay sane.